location. Of course, if you were not in the think tank this past Sunday, then this background here is new to you. And it's this is what I guess you'd call the second bedroom. This is the second bedroom in the place in which I now live, and I've been here a week. Man, the time has flown. Hello, Heather. I see you waving, and Courtney. And who else do we have in here? I know some people were waiting for me to pop in here. Concha, Tracy, James. Thanks to everyone for tuning in tonight. Yes, this is the second bedroom. This is not the bedroom I sleep in. This is the bedroom that my dad will use when he's here and any other guests that I may have. This is where let me see if I can. Why am I getting feedback from here? Okay. This is where people will be staying when they come down to see me, or my dad comes to stay for a while. And it's, the thing I noticed about getting in here is there is not a lot of closet space in this place. And that little closet you see back there is it for this room. My closet is a bit bigger. Jessica and Vicky, Julia, Stacy, Jasmine, LaFord, Kimberly, Ann, Layla, Penny, Carol. Thanks to everyone. How do I sound tonight? I want to make sure there's no echoes or anything like that. But this is the second bedroom. I don't want to call it the spare bedroom, but is the other bedroom. Of course, my bedroom would be the master bedroom. And if you need a little layout, I'm actually where I'm looking. There's actually a window here, and I can look out onto the landing on the floor that I live, and it's outside. Okay, my door opens to the outside, but then there's a little walk, and then around the corner is the elevator. The front door to my place is right here. You walk in and to the left of this bedroom. If you go straight down that way, the kitchen will be on the right, and then the living room where the TV is, and then you make a round to the left is back where my bedroom is. So that is west. The water is over there. The Gulf is over there. And the inlet is over there. So that's east. So, is it me or are you quieter? Let me see what I can maybe do with the volume a little bit here. Hold on. See if I can tune it up. I don't know if that's louder or not there, Susan. I just don't want to get into I don't want to get into a echo situation, which I think is caused sometimes by using Wirecast, which is what I have to do now to do these live shows. But this is my new place, and like I said, go down around to the left is my bedroom. There's my bathroom over there. And then there's the balcony over there. It's really nice. I'm just going to leave it at that. I continue to say that if it had not been for my dad wanting me to get a nicer place, and I'm trying to mess with the volume here. Hold on. Master mute. I'm trying to pump the volume up a little bit. Is it going to allow me to do that or not? I don't know. Sounds better now. Okay. Well, this is a live show. I don't want to mess around with the technical controls too much, but thanks for everybody for joining in tonight. We got quite a show tonight, and of course, something just happened like a half hour ago that I get to talk about, and we'll talk about that for a second. But thanks for everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Vicky. It's a nice place. And like I said, I would never be able to afford to live here if Dad wasn't paying for half. And the reason he's paying for half is he's going to be living here sometimes. And the place that I lived was just a one bedroom, very tiny, and he didn't like it very much. And my mother and dad um, have been accustomed to staying in nice places, so that's where my dad wanted the kind of place he wanted to stay when he came down here. So there you go. Um, your grandparents live in Clearwater. Hey, there's the Cherie. Cherie, first of her name. That's interesting, Cherie. I don't know what that means, but that's cool. What's going on, Cherie? Your grandparents live in Clearwater. It's beautiful down here, Laura. There's no doubt about it. It was a beautiful day today. And in fact, if you saw the video I posted on my private Facebook page, there was a boat out there with some tourists or something, and there were dolphins following the boat and jumping out of the water. You can go to my Facebook page, not Unfound, not just my personal Edward Denzel page, and you'll see them following behind the boat. I don't know how far they were out into the water, maybe an eighth of a mile or something like that. But the dolphins were following behind the boat. Just happened to see that while I was sitting here today. Um, well, hello, Justin slash Jimmy. What's going on? A Game of Thrones reference tree. Okay, I didn't know that. See, I've never watched Game of Thrones. I have no idea what it's about or anything. So I know I'm like the one of like 10 people in the world who's never watched it. What's going on, Charlotte M7? That's interesting. And Katina, thank you for tuning in tonight. So I saw some dolphins today, and that was cool in that video. If you want to see it, it's like a 45-second video, something like that. Need to talk a little bit about the discussion group. We now have over 5,000 people there. It's incredible. It is mind-boggling to me. What's going on, Derek? Um, the group, as you all know, is not something that people can just join because this is not like the page where somebody can just go by one day and like it and suddenly all the numbers, start going up. To get into the group, you either have to be invited or you have to request to be in the group. And it's never could I have imagined 2.5 years ago when the group got started that it would get to 5,000 members. As I continue to say, I can remember when there were 62 members in there. And you should know something, that I'm not the person who started the group. All right, most people don't realize that, but I'm going to let you in on a little tiny secret tonight for this show. I did not start the group. And in fact, when it was brought up to me as something that I should do, it never even occurred to me till this person brought it up. I did not start the group. The guy who started the group was Jeremiah Walters, who has been with Unfound since the beginning. And early on, he contacted me that he'd like to set up a group for Unfound listeners. Of course, I don't even know how many listeners Unfound had at the time. But he mentioned that to me, and I was like, sure. And I did not know Jeremiah at all before he brought this up. Just contacted me one day out of the blue. I said, sure, go ahead. That's fine by me. And he started it. And, like I said, for some reason, the number 62 is burnt into my mind. That just one day early on, I looked at it, and it was like 62 people in there. I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And now we're at 5,000. And it's crazy. Just never could have imagined. It's, been like 2.5 years. And although, compared to a member, if you compare the membership to like some other pages out there, that's not a lot of people, like true crime pages. It's not a lot. But for groups, like a private group like it is, I think it's one of the biggest with 5,000 people. So I just cannot thank all of you enough. Of course, myself, I'm an administrator there. Jeremiah is an administrator there, although he doesn't do much. He's in the group and he mentions things and he talks, but he doesn't do much administrating. And I think all of you now know that it's Carrie who is the newest administrator, and she kind of keeps an eye on things for me now and has been doing so, I'm going to say, for about 6 weeks, something like that, if not longer. Carol, you're another one who hasn't watched Game of Thrones. Me and you together, Carol. Courtney, Katina, thank you. Bree, what's going on? Laura doesn't watch Game of Thrones. Thank you, Carla. And Penny's making comment to Cherie. Oakley, I loved your maiden show last week. Great live band. Oakley, I have tickets to see them in July for their first show in the United States on their Legacy of the Beast tour down in Sunrise, Florida. I'll be going down there in July for the first show, so I'm all excited about that. In fact, the only time I've seen Iron Maiden was back in 2016. Once again, down in Sunrise, Florida, which is like a 5-hour drive from here, or maybe 4 hours, something like that. But I'm really excited about going to see them again, and I'm hoping one of my best friends of all time is going to come down here. And we're going to go down together. So I'm really looking forward to that. Yes, my maiden shirts. Love my maiden shirts. Love my hard rock shirts. Um, Derek, have you ever been to the Clearwater Marine Aquarium? No, never been there, Derek. Nope. Mm-mm. But what's going on, Christine? Um, so 5,000 members in the discussion group, and I just want to say that although we've had a couple problems here and there, for having a group that has 5,000 people in it, all over the world, and have as little problems as we have had in there as far as any sort of trolls or anything. Of course, it's monitored, and we let people in. We monitor it. For to have over 5,000 people have so little problems with people is amazing. I just cannot thank you all enough for keeping it very mature and civilized in there. There's been very little administrating that has had to been done over the last 2.5 years, and the credit all goes to all of you. Of course, you know probably that I have a pretty heavy hammer when it comes to people getting out of line. I don't, people get out of line. I have no problem kicking them out and blocking them, but I really have not had to do that much, and I don't think Carrie has either. So I just want to thank you all who participate there. That keep it good, you keep it nice, you keep it civilized, and of course, many of the guests who have been on Unfound are in there, and the way you treat them, I cannot thank you all enough. It's just great. I deeply appreciate it. Katrina says, I would love to go to Vegas and see Def Leppard. I've seen Def Leppard twice, both here uh, since I moved to Tampa. Once with Kiss, the only time I've seen Kiss, and then once when they were Tesla and who was it? Tesla and oh my gosh, who was it? Um, Sticks. I saw Tesla, Sticks, and Def Leppard. Must have been 2017. So I've seen Def Leppard twice. Derek, I'm not a Marvel fan, but Avengers Endgame is now the second highest. I know it is, Derek. I know it. But 5,000 members in the group. The group was started by Jeremiah Walters. So if you find him in the group, please thank him. I don't know how often he watches on Wednesday nights, but please thank him. So we were really pushing. Sharia, I know, was really pushing for that 5,000 number, and now we've gotten there, and we're just going to keep going up. For any certain Patreon supporters and the guests, all of your books will be going out tomorrow. Your printed editions with my signatures inside for those people that at the highest level in Patreon, and for the guests who were the interviews for those episodes that are in Volume 5. Of course, you've seen me post about it. Those books are going to be shipped out tomorrow. I've signed them and put little messages in them. I got all the addresses together. And after I go to the gym tomorrow, I will be going to the post office to mail those out. So if you think that you are one of those people, and I know I see a few of you in here, like I think Christine and Heather are a couple people who jump out at me. You will be getting books within the next few days with a little message from me and them because of your support, and of course for the guests, of course because they were on the program. Um, James, Def Leppard, Night Ranger, Poison. Have never seen Poison. I have seen Night Ranger when I was in Las Vegas. Have never seen Poison. Not a big Poison fan. Miranda, what's going on? How are you tonight? Good to see you. Um, Here's what I want to talk about next, and this is something that just happened, and you'll all get a kick out of this. Where is it? What does this look like to you? See it? I'm sure you can read it now. That is a summons for jury service. And I just want you to know, as you all know, I think I'm 48. I'll be 49 years old on August 1st. That is the first jury summons I've ever gotten in my life. First one. Now, why it's taken this long, I don't know. But I think because my perception is that jury summons are connected to um, if you own a house or something like that and paying property taxes and everything. And I've never owned a house. So I think that's why I've been able to avoid it for so long. But I got my first jury summons. I'll put it up for there if you missed it. Jury service, Edward Densel. I have to report on June 3rd, 2019 at 8:15 a.m. That's going to be tough because I usually don't like to get up that early. So there you go. That just happened. Like I said, I got my mail at about 8:30 tonight. Um, I watched the movie JFK, Derek. That no, I think that Lee Harvey Oswald personally acted alone. I know I'm a square or something for thinking that. I just think Lee Harvey Oswald worked by himself. Um, Thank you, Valerie, for tuning in. Thank you. Um, Heather, my package, great. Uh, I had it only once when I was 18, so like last year. I've been lucky too, James says. I'm 47. LaFord says I've been on jury duty twice, both murder trials. Wow. LaFord girl, nope, I rent. See, you're good, Miranda. Good. Um, okay, Miranda, you send me a Facebook page message later. Great. Okay. Um, Bree says I got called in April, but they missed my number by 14 people. Okay. Courtney says I've been called for jury duty, but never got picked. Um, Thank you for the suggestion, Laura. I don't think Sam's in Spring Hill. Okay, I don't know anything about that. Bree says I've been called 3 times and I'm only 22. Bree says, "See, it's just weird. I don't get it." Jasmine, 2 years ago for her. Uh, okay, Miranda, you send it to me right now. Layla says she served on a child molestation jury about 30 years ago. Okay, Charlotte Sav, I want to be called for jury duty so bad. Well, Charlotte, if you want to come down and pretend to be me here in Florida, you're more than happy to. I'm more than happy to make that happen. Um, you don't own anything, and you get called all the time. That's interesting, Bree. In Vegas, they randomly pick using driver's licenses. Okay. Happy Hippo says I'm 34, never owned a home, and been summoned at least 6 times. I guess I'm right about that. Bree says it's boring. Cherie, I've only been called once in your whole life. Okay, Cherie. Um, Derek, well, you're 18. Yeah, I forget how old you have to be to get called for jury duty. I guess maybe it is 18. Um, so I don't know, what's going to go on there. We'll see. It's going to be a new thing for me. I remember when I lived in Las Vegas, and a good friend of mine, his name was Kelly, he got called to jury duty. I'm going to say maybe 2006 or something. He ended up being the foreperson, and I think he was only, let me think about this. They made him the foreperson. I think he was only 28 years old or something like that. And he got summoned and he became the foreperson for the jury at 28 years old. So That's interesting to me. 25 and gotten called twice. Um, I knew this was going to generate some conversation. Okay, deal, Charlotte. Well, and then when we get caught doing it, I guess Charlotte will both go to jail. It was based on voter registration when I was called. Layla says that was in Washington. Don't know if they still do that. I don't know. Derek, this is my first time ever. I've never gotten summons. Period. Until today. Until today. So there you go. I thought you might all find that interesting, and I just wonder. They put you up there. I know they ask you a bunch of questions, and I suppose that my experience with crimes and disappearances and talking to law enforcement people and everything, I'm sure that's going to come up in a questionnaire. I'm pretty sure it will. I might get booted just for that. Let's hope. If I have to serve, then I have to serve. That's just the way it goes. Um. Okay, Katrina's watching the Ted Bundy movie. Katina says I received a summons to appear in Batesville. First jury duty about 3 months after I moved to Mississippi. Huh. Okay. Everybody has different experiences. That's interesting. So I got about less than a month to think about it, and we'll see what happens. All right, the Lancaster poll, the Megan Lancaster poll from last Friday. A large majority of you stated that for sure the person who knows what happened to Megan is the guy who was seen in the car with her that evening, the night that we believed that she disappeared. I agree with that, and in fact, I gave some suggestions to Kelly or Katie that of how she might go about looking into that further. I think that, in my opinion, and I told her for 2019, the goal should be to try to figure out who that guy is. Even though I know it's been some years, and her husband has a different description, I came up with kind of a way that she could do that, and I hope that she's going to do that. Once again, people can take or reject any of my suggestions, and I don't take it personally either way. But I agree with all of you that that's probably uh, the best thing to try to do. If you suspect that this guy knows what happens to her, then you got to do your best to figure out who he is. Um, Cherie is not liking the Ted Bundy movie. Okay. Bree says you get paid when you go here because to jury duty because you have to pay to park in the city, right? Gene says the prosecution will want you, Ed. Well, maybe, Gene, but maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say. Depends, I guess, what kind of case it is. Um, it just depends. And I have to say, even though I deal with, of course, this program with disappearances and crimes, and I think that I'm pretty much in the middle. Although you've heard me defend the police, you've heard me criticize the police, you've heard me defend prosecutors, you've heard me criticize prosecutors. So I think I try to split it right down the middle. So you may be right, Gene, but I'd like to think that I've played it pretty right down the middle in hosting Unfound, and really, I'm not on really either side. Um, LaFord says I mentioned I was a huge true crime buff on the questionnaire, and I still got picked twice. Well, I don't like hearing that, LaFord. Um, Happy says about the Lancaster episodes, Megan's episode, not being able to get the phone records was crazy. She needs to try again and more aggressively. Yes, absolutely. Totally true, Happy. Miranda, yeah, you live in Florida. It might be interesting. Yeah, well, there is the Florida phenomenon with all these crazy things that happen in this state, I guess. Yeah, so who knows what I might get into if I get on a jury, Miranda. You're exactly right. Layla, I had to drive 50 miles to the county seat and was reimbursed mileage, but it wasn't very much. Yeah, that Gene says you're unbiased, Ed. I try to be. I try to be. So that's what the Megan Lancaster poll that's in the group. If you're in the group, you know all about the polls that we take there. And came to the conclusion that the person who's most likely to know what happened to Megan was the guy that was seen in the car with her that day by Katie and her husband, who is also Megan's brother. Um, Charlotte says, Ed, I listen to you in part because you're very neutral and objective. I appreciate that, Charlotte. I try to be. That's one of the goals. Yes. I try to call it like I see it. I do try. I try to. Uh, Jasmine says, I live next to my courthouse, so I just walked there. Wow, that's interesting. You live next to the courthouse, Jasmine. Okay. That is interesting to me. Okay. Let's take a question. Let's go down here and we're going to start with Jill's question first. Derek says, why didn't Katie turn around and follow her? We did talk about that, but I don't know if that ever. Once again, I do so much, and that interview was done over a week ago, and I just she said she had a bad feeling about it at the time, but there's nothing wrong with her sister-in-law being in the car with some guy. That's why she had a bad feeling about it, but at that time Megan was not missing. She was just riding around with some guy. So, um, I don't know what Katie would have done if she turned around and followed her. What's she gonna do? Stalk her? I don't know. She said she had a bad feeling about this, and I don't want to dismiss her feelings, but I also know that it's very easy after the fact, once you know that someone disappeared, to then say, you know what, I had a bad feeling about that. Well, I don't know. Um, we see people, we pass people on the street all the time that we know. We don't turn around and follow them, even though there is a chance, I guess, that they could go missing. Um, uh, I mean, she's her best friend for Pete's sake. Yeah, but at that point, Derek, it wasn't clear that Megan was missing. Megan was just driving around with a guy. So, what motive would Katie have to turn around and follow her? I don't know. Um, why didn't the brother call her? Didn't he have her number, Concha? This once again goes to they didn't know that anything bad was going to happen. Why follow somebody? Why make a U turn and follow her? Why call her? Because nothing at that time was strange. The disappearance hadn't happened yet. I mean, I could understand if it was like a few days down the road and they hadn't heard from her and they tried to call her and everything else, and then they passed her on the street and she was with some guy. Then I get it. Then I get turning around and trying to track her down and saying, hey, Megan, where you been? Otherwise, I think people were just going about their regular day, and that's just what they would regularly do. If they pass Megan on the street, hey Megan, there she is, and just go about what they're doing. Um, Charlotte, I'm not familiar with that case. No, I'm not. Um, oh, Katrina, that's very kind. About my mom, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is gonna be the first Mother's Day without my mom. I was thinking about that a couple days ago when I was food shopping and I saw all of the cards and everything that are out for Mother's Day. And the most pride I have about myself with my mother is that I moved away from Pennsylvania in 1998. So right before Mother's Day, 1998. And in all those years of being away from home, I never missed Mother's Day. I always sent her flowers every Mother's Day. Every Mother's Day. So like 20 of them. 21 of them. And every Mother's Day, and her birthday was October 25th. I never missed her Mother's Day, and I never missed her birthday. Flowers. My mom was so into flowers. Oh my gosh. So I sent like 40 whatever bouquets or whatever of flowers over 20 years. I never missed once. And so this will be the first time that I won't have to do that. So it is weird. It is weird, Katrina, but that's life. Yeah. But I appreciate that. Thank you. Um, let's take Jill. I said I was going to take Jill's question. Let's just do that right now. Do I believe a serial killer is connected to any of Unfound's cases? I took some time to go back through the cases, just like 10 minutes, and think about them for a second. And these are the ones that I think could most likely be connected to a serial killer. Now, of course, we know Debbie Lowe, being that her family knew that serial killer. He had been over to their house, and I should have put his name down in my notes, and I didn't. But if you'll go back and listen to that episode, there's a pretty good reason to believe that that guy is responsible for Debbie's disappearance. Okay, going back to the 1970s. Um, the other ones, now these are, for different reasons. I will give you my reasons for each. Let me just conscious, but the best. But Katie said she was going to call, but didn't have her number. I guess if Katie says she didn't have her number, then she didn't have her number. I don't know what to say about that, Concha. Um, has this list been made public? Um, what if anything have the police said about her list of names and numbers? Well, I think they really haven't wanted to talk about it, Miranda, because the chief of police was one of the people on the list. Is it public? Has the list been made public? Here's what I know. I have the list. My assistant Emily has the list. I don't know if it's public or not. That would totally be up to Katie to make it public. I don't know if she has or not. So let's go through. I think Brandy Wells' disappearance from Texas, in Longview, Texas, could be the work of a serial killer, given the circumstances. Okay, I of course believe, if you go back to that case, that the guy in the white hat is responsible for a disappearance. And the way it kind of just happened, if I am correct, leads me to believe that this guy could have done this before and probably has done it since in making young women disappear. So I would put Brandy Wells in that category. I would put Nikki McCown as also a woman who could have been the victim of a serial killer. Of course, we know that Tommy Swint, she knew him. I personally believe that he caused her disappearance. He's dead now. But after Nikki disappeared, and after they figured out that Tommy Swint had been responsible for another woman's murder back in the 1990s, and I'm inclined to believe there might be other unsolved murders that he is attached to, of course, which would make him a serial killer. So I think you could put Nikki McCown in the category of being made to disappear by a serial killer. Patty Action, a case from here in the Clearwater area back in the late 70s. Of course, I talked at the time that there were 4 young women who went missing within like a year of each other, all in the same area. So I could be convinced that a serial killer was at work at that time for her disappearance, along with these other women's disappearances. And then Bonnie Joseph, because, of course, that was a case that had to do with the Highway of Tears in Canada. And, of course, the Canadians believe that there is a serial killer working up there that still has not been caught. So those would probably be the ones that I would pick out. Maybe if I had a little more time. Jill, I don't know if you're watching tonight or not, those are probably my choices that are most likely. But given more time, maybe I might be able to come up with one or two. Ed, do you have plans to ever discuss the Man McCann case? I do not. Thank you, Cypher Girl. I appreciate that. Miranda says, sorry, save my question for later. Forgot about the Drew questions first. Miranda, it's no big deal. No problem. Yeah, Gerald Schaefer. Thank you, Jasmine, for reminding me. I should have written that down. But yes, Gerard Schaefer was a serial killer. killed multiple people, multiple women in the 1970s. And I personally believe that he is responsible for Debbie Lowe's disappearance. He knew the family, had been over to the house, and he is a serial killer. Um, Cherie says I could talk. She could talk about the McCann case forever. I just, I just, once again, it's one of those things. It's been covered all over the place, up and down and all around. Um, so I have no plans to cover it. If her parents ever wanted to talk to me, I'd talk to them. Like I said, I'll talk to anybody. What's going on, Carrie? I was talking about you a little late earlier when we were talking about the discussion group for the 5,000 people that are now in the group and talking about how you're the newest administrator. Um, yeah, LaFord, that was yeah. I think that Jill asked a really good question. Do I believe serial killers connect in any Unfound cases? Yes. Let me just go down the list again: Debbie Lowe, Brandy Wells, Nikki PcCown, Patty Action, and Bonnie Joseph. There might be a few in there, but there might even be more than that. But it would be totally guesswork at that point. Jill, I just answered your question. So I'm not going to go over it again. You'll just have to rewatch the video later. Layla, I think this Friday's has been rumored to be the work of the Green River Killer. Layla, this Friday with Kelly Sims. I think once you hear it, I think you're going to dismiss that. I know it's been a rumor, but I think once you hear the interview that I do with Kelly's best friend Brenda, I think that your suspicions are going to point in different directions. Now, there are multiple of different directions, but it's certainly going to point you away from the Green River Killer. Um, Thank you, LaFord, for agreeing with me. Jill, I see you made it. And once again, I just answered your question. So that was maybe bad timing on my part or maybe bad timing on your part. Let me talk about maybe some of you already know. If any of you are from the Hemphill County, Texas area, that a deputy has resigned. His name is Ken Guerra, Guerra. I was told this by Penny yesterday or the day before. And he put in his 2 weeks notice as soon as Pine Gregory was fired. And so I'm guessing right very soon his 2 weeks are going to be up and he'll be gone. I don't know what to make of this. You could look at this either way. It may have nothing. Maybe he was planning to resign even before all this happened, before Pine Gregory got fired. It could be that he's deciding to leave because of the bad name that the Hemphill County Sheriff's Department is getting, and he worries about maybe getting another job elsewhere. Or he could be resigning because he didn't think Pine Gregory should be fired and he's resigning in protest. It's all over the map. I have no feelings on it. Anyway, I don't know this guy. In fact, in all the coverage that we've done of Thomas Brown's case, his name has hardly ever come up. So I don't know where he was that night. I don't know if he was working that night. I don't know what his opinion is on Thomas Brown's case. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, they're not your suspicions regarding Kelly Sims' case. They're not my suspicions, just what I've read. Yeah, I've read them too, Layla, but they're rumors that have no basis in fact. And once again, once you hear the interview and hear the circumstances and things, there are a lot of other people to look at. I was good. You heard half of it, Jill. Okay, you heard half of my answer. Great. Okay. Yes, Carrie. Wait. What did I miss? Who else is leaving? Ken Guerra is one of the deputies in Hemphill County, and he put in his 2 weeks notice. And my understanding is he did this right around the time of the news getting out that Pine Gregory was fired. So, once again, there's going to be all sorts of speculation with this. I'm going to stay away from it, just like I have with Jeff Castleton's suicide, just with like everything else. I don't know what to think of it. It's easy to believe all sorts of things, and everybody's going to attach some sort of meaning to Ken Guerra resigning. Maybe his family's moving. Maybe he has some health issue like cancer or something. I don't know. I have no idea. And I just would not look into it too deeply at this point. I would urge you to not do that. All right? Let those people in those other groups and cliques and everything else do all the rumorizing and theorizing, and don't do that. Okay? If I find out anything solid, all of you will be the first to know. And and once, we get the right information, then we can be the ones who are correct. Until that happens, it's just talk. Um, or maybe he wanted to get out, got fired, easier to get the job away. Sherry, it's. I think there's like 100 different possibilities, and I don't know. Khalil, no, they've never admitted to the photo on anything ever, ever, nothing. They've admitted nothing to anyone ever regarding that photo. Of course, the main point I think that was made regarding the photo of Thomas pumping gas is now the photo doesn't exist. Um, he was one of the last originals, yes. Um, Carrie, my understanding is basically all of the deputies who worked under James Pearson quit. Now, Ken Guerra might be one of the ones there were a couple that stuck around, but most of them quit. I don't know if Ken Guerra was one of them or not. Ben Guerra? Is it Ben Guerra? Cherie, is that what you're telling me now? Ben, not Ken? Okay. Ben Guerra. I must have typed that wrong. I'm looking at my notes over to the left. Okay, maybe I typed that wrong. But I don't know if he served under Pearson or not. I would have to ask James that. I don't know. Um, yeah. Well, like I said, everybody's going to have their theories. Miranda, they will all just join another police department. Well, maybe Miranda, maybe not. Hard to say. Derek, it's a very random thing given what we're talking about, so I'm going to skip it. um, Carrie says, I think one or two deputies stayed and one dispatcher. Carrie, that sounds right to me. But I believe at least one of those deputies who stayed around was gone a while ago, left a while ago. He was there when, of course, when Thomas disappeared, but sometime between November 2016, and let's say the beginning of this year, he left. So um, you may be right about that. De Herrera was the only deputy that stayed, Katina says. Okay, so, and I think De Herrera, though, left Casina, right? And right, okay, and then you're saying Lewis let him go in February, March 2017. There you go. So I was right about that. Okay, good. Sometimes I know what I'm talking about. Um, Derek, um, we're just kind of into a thing here. I'm not trying to ignore you, but we're talking about something, and then you come up with a question about uh, a movie. So it seems a little random. It seems a little random. That's all I'm saying. Okay, because we're covering an important topic right now, given that it's a disappearance that we covered on Unfound. That's always going to get number one attention when we're talking about cases that Unfound covers. Okay, it's just the way it is for this group. I don't mind answering questions on other things, but once we get into a discussion on something that Unfound actually covered, then I got to go with it. All right, that's why people are here. Um, Happy says, I can't imagine being his poor mom thinking about all who could be involved in their son's murder. Happy, I agree. I agree. Um, it's just, uh, it's just, I can't imagine it. And that's what I tell every guest. I can't imagine it. But I think now all of the deputies who are in Hemphill County are all new as of Nathan Lewis becoming sheriff. I don't think any of them served under James Pearson now, the prior, except maybe, I don't know. I just know most of them quit when they found out Nathan Lewis got elected, and I've actually gotten to talk to a couple of those deputies, one on the phone, and then the other one through Messenger a few times. So, once again, I would not make anything of it. All right, please do not get wrapped up in the theorizing and everything else. Um, Now I will answer your question, Derek. I'm going to answer your question right now. All right. Now that we've covered that, I do remember that. I recently watched the movie. Do you remember The Miracle on Ice? Yes, I'm old enough to remember it. I was 10 years old, but I don't believe that I was watching it when it happened. And to this day, I'm not a big hockey fan. Um, but I've I haven't even seen the movie with Kurt Russell. I think I've seen the end, and I'm a huge Kurt Russell fan. Um, but I don't think I've seen the entire movie. And but I am unfortunately old enough to remember when it happened in 1980. Um, Kim had asked me in the group, "Do I ever turn down an interview because I believe the person is lying? Have I ever? Would I do that? The answer is yes. Have I done that? The answer is also yes. In fact, I had a situation a couple months ago. Of course, I could never tell you the case, in which I was talking to a young man who disappeared. I was talking to his mother, and she wanted to, how do I put it? You know how we talk about missing people on Unfound. You know how we do talk about their addictions. We do talk about the trouble that they get into because a lot of that usually does uh, end up causing disappearances. Okay, that's why we do it. We're not here to just expose people's private lives. That's not why we do that. Well, this mother wanted to continue to try to tell me how perfect her son was and how he didn't do drugs and all of these things. And then I looked his record up and found out that wasn't the case. So when that happens, I start, I can't talk to that person if they're going to and I know why parents do that because they worry, well, if the public hears about my son or daughter's drug problem, they're not going to care. They find out my daughter was a prostitute, then they're not going to care. If my son is a drug dealer, they're not going to care. And unfortunately, a certain part of that is true. But that, on the other hand, does not mean you lie. All right. Especially to me, a guy who is trying um, to help. Okay. Because if you're going to lie to me, a guy who is, I'm not getting paid, they don't pay me to do this. I'm not charging them. I'm here to help for free. And then you're lying to me. Then I start to think you're probably going to lie about a lot of other things too. And so I have had to do that. And these people, I just can't do it. Um, so, Kim, I don't know if you're in here or not, um, but that's the answer. That I have run into that, and I think in the Q&A episode, I talked about how some people don't want to talk about. They don't necessarily lie to me, but they tell me up front, well, we can't talk about this, we can't talk about that. Viable facts, viable, not theories necessarily, but real facts, things are substantiated, supported that they don't want to talk about that could have led to the disappearance. That's the other problem. People who lie and people who know that there are facts that could have led to the disappearance and they say, well, we don't want to talk about those. Those two types of people I can't have on the program. I just can't do it. All right. There is an update on one of Unfound's cases, but I don't think at this point I can tell you which case it is. And you're going to hear this on Friday's program in the Unfound news section as well. Last week, coincidentally, the day that I was moving, an investigator for one of Unfound's cases called me. I've never talked to this person before, ever. In fact, the reason I didn't pick up the phone, I remember who I was. I was with uh, Derek, who has become a friend of mine, who's my personal trainer, who helped me move. We were in his Jeep. We were driving back from the U-Haul place, and my phone rang. I see the number. If I don't know the phone number, I don't pick up. Well, then when I checked it later, it was an investigator for a certain case that Unfound is covered. And I'll give you that it was a case that we covered within the last, I'd say, 6 months. And this person, this investigator, had found out that I had had discussions with other people of interest, witnesses, etc. It was not the guest. And this investigator wanted to know if I had copies or of the conversations, wanted to know if I had recorded the conversations. Of course, I have to ask permission because Florida is a two-party state. I must ask permission before I record phone calls. These people I did not talk on the phone anyway, but we talked over Messenger. This investigator found out about those conversations and wanted copies of them. And so I said, absolutely. So I put it all together and I sent those off to him. And then I called the guest and told her, what had gone on. And, of course, she was very thankful. Unfortunately, once again, I don't want to tell you what the case is at this point. Once again, because I was talking to somebody in law enforcement. It was not actually, it was an investigator working for the DA's office in that area. Okay, so he wasn't necessarily a cop. He was an investigator for a particular DA's office in that area. So I'm here to help. And I think that I'll tell you this. I think that what he's trying to do is trying to figure out, because he has talked to these people too, and he's trying to figure out if the stories that they told him are the same stories that they told me and see if there is any discrepancies. And I think that's great. And that's why I'm here. That's one of the things, getting people to go on the record with what they know, what they saw, what they heard. And then law enforcement can at some point use some of these interviews, discussions to compare to what that person told them at the time. And so it was very interesting, and once I think that I can go public with what case it is, I will. But I don't think that I can right now because I not only have to think about that case, but I have to think about that possibility happening down the road. And I want other investigators who think they have to contact me. They need to know that I can keep things under wraps. That I'm just gonna go blah 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 blah, and tell everybody. Okay. The main goal is to help solve these cases. It's not to tell all of you everything every time some investigator contacts me. I will tell you, though, what I can. Okay, but we just have to keep in mind the most important part is solving these cases. So sometimes I'm just going to have to keep things under wraps. All right, the call I'm not going to be able to take. Not at this second. So it was interesting. So when I can say something, I will. Let's get caught up here. Derek, don't feel bad about that. Carrie Penny has some super strength. She amazes me. I agree. Let's see here. Katrina says, first I heard of Guerra leaving. Glad I tuned in tonight. Not making anything of it right now for sure. Time will tell, Katrina says. Katina says, me too, Ed, as far as, I'm guessing as far as not theorizing or doing anything right at this time. Happy says, I hope we eventually get a good idea of what exactly happened to Thomas that night. Happy, and I think everybody feels that way. Happy, of course. Yeah, Sheree is the ultimate decider, Derek, and just maybe a little bad timing with the question, but I answered it, and I don't want you to feel bad. Carrie, typically those mistakes tend to improve the chances of disappearing. LaFord, um, welcome, Derek. Okay. Um, Carrie says, I will have to finish listening a bit. See y'all later. Okay, Carrie, call you later. Bye, Carrie. Ed, Katrina, Ed, do you think detectives or higher authorities ever listen to your podcast interviews? I do. I do. I know that for sure. Not in every case. I couldn't even pick out a percentage for you, but I know they do because I know just to be blunt, some of my guests have taken those interviews and taken to the police and made the detectives listen to it. A good example would be one that's off the top of my head is Devin Bond's case. I know for a fact that his mother took her interview with me and had the people working on her son's case listen to it. And I know for a fact because she told me that after the detectives were done, they said, "Wow, there were some things in here that we didn't think of." That's the truth. That's the truth. So this is what we're trying to do. I'm not saying I'm smart, some smart guy or anything. I don't think I am. But I've said since basically the beginning, since Unfound started, that what the interviews do is they are a very easy way to get to know a case very quickly. Okay. In addition, they are formatted interviews, conversations, so it's easy to understand. And but we do sometimes get off on some tangents depending on what the answers are to the questions that I ask. And what's good about that is that sometimes you never know when the discussion is going where it's going to go. And in fact, you will hear when I do interviews that I will just outright tell you sometimes, "Wow, I didn't know that." There are often times when we get into something in an interview that I will tell you, the listeners, "Man, I'm just hearing, you're hearing it for the first time. I'm hearing it for the first time. I didn't know that." So that's why I think these interviews are so good because they're organized, because they can get done in an hour and a half to 2 hours, and everything you need to know about that disappearance is right there. It's right there. So, whereas police may have a stack of paperwork regarding a disappearance that's that thick, they can listen to an interview with a mother, a sister in 2 hours and get that stack of their papers condensed down to this. And uh, it's like instead of reading a book, getting one of those MP3 books and listening to it in your car every day. That's the difference. So I do think um, Cherie, Dawn Turner as well. That's possible. Off the top of my head, I don't know Cherie, but that's possible. That's possible. I know that Audrey Bowman's mother did that. I know, man. Let me think of a couple others off the top of my head. Maybe maybe Mary Lyle did that too. I'm not sure about that. I'm sure if I went through the list, I'd be able to tell you the specific ones where they got back to me and said, the police listened to our interview. I could go through the list and tell you that if I could go through the list. Um, Katina, yeah, I bet they read our discussions as well because we dissect information in multiple directions. That could be Katina. I don't know. Um, I don't know. I don't know how many of these investigators are coming to the podcast by choice, but I do know that many of them eventually end up listening because the families take these interviews to the police, and so the police do take the time to listen. LaForce says law enforcement should be listening. Well, I'd like them to. Once again, I'm not here to be a know-it-all. I'm not here to be a know-it-all. Cherie's not here to be a know-it-all. Emily isn't, and everybody else who works on the program. We're not know-it-alls. We're not trying to tell them how to do their business, but we do believe that doing business the way we do um, does bring up some things maybe that law enforcement hasn't thought of because we do go into such depth. And once again, on top of everything else, we cover a lot of cases that are old. And a lot of these investigators weren't even policemen or police women, police officers, detectives at the time that the disappearance happened. And so I think that these interviews with people who were alive at the time, who did experience it, can then easily pass that information on to these new people through the form of an interview. I think that I think that works really well. Um, oh, you can't wait till the end to hear thoughts. Well, um, yeah, I try not to talk too much after the interviews, okay? Because all the facts and everything are covered in the interview. And the only reason I do that afterwards is just to point out a couple things that caught my ear. And as you know, I rarely do any theorizing in those comments afterwards. Really, if you want my theories on it, you have to be a Patreon member for at least $2 a month. And then every Friday, or sometimes they come out Friday, sometimes Saturday, you'll get like a 2,500 word blog about every case every week. I write those, I do those on Fridays. I write those on Fridays when the episodes come out. If you really want to hear my deep thoughts and really take apart a case theoretically, that's where I do that. Okay, and like Cherie and other people who are Patreon members, it's like at least 2,500 words every Friday or Saturday. So if that entices you to become a Patreon member, you'd like to see me kind of expound on some things and theorize some, then that's the place to find that information if you're into that. Um, uh, have there been any updates on Kimberly um, Raymer's case? Laura, not that I'm aware of. It seems that that is an investigation that even though that's kind of an older disappearance, that it's continuing. Um, I know that they were going to name a softball field after her, so that keeps her name out there, which is good. That's one of those ones where I wouldn't say I've gotten a ton of emails, but I've gotten quite a few messages about theories and rumors and everything else. That's one of those cases that has generated a lot of that. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what to make of it. But specifically, something that I could say as an update, no. But it seems to me though that the in fact, Kimberly Rember's case might be one where her mother took the interview to the police. Now that I think about it, I'd have to talk to her mother to find that out. Sue, I'd have to talk to Sue to find that out. But the simple answer is no, Laura. Unfortunately, um, LaFord. I hope Rosemary Rat's daughter takes your chat to the police. That case is totally solvable. That's another one where it's very possible that she did. I haven't talked to her in a little while, but maybe she did. Katrina hopes too soon to become a patron. Katrina, I'd love to have you there. And if you like what I talk about after those 5 minutes after every interview, then you're certainly going to like what you'll find at the Patreon blog. And the other good thing is that once you become a member, there's going to be like 100 blog, or not, maybe not 100, but about 50 or 60 blogs to read, all 2,500, at least 2,500 words each. Going back, I think I started writing them, must have been August of 2017. So every case from August 2017 up to the present has a blog written by me. Uh, that's a lot of. It's going to be a lot of reading for you, Katrina. That and would love to have you there. Yeah, Cherie says please consider joining the think tank. It is fun, great discussion, and it's very helpful to the guests, which is one of the main reasons that we do it. Right. Okay. Let me take another question, and then we are going to. We're always in an hour. Wow. Okay. Um. Then I we'll talk about this Friday's case. And of course, we've already talked a little bit about it already with the Kelly Sims disappearance. Julia asked me, and it wasn't so much a question, but a comment, but I turned it into a question. Why don't I talk to a police officer about why disappearances aren't handled differently? Okay, so I guess have somebody come onto the program, talk to some law enforcement officer, and try to explain all the things. And I think in her question in the group, Joy explained, like, why don't they fingerprint vehicles? Why don't they do these other things? Why do they let it go? Um, Police officers, investigators are put in a very difficult position, okay? Because their experience tells them that most people who go missing come back. That is a fact. A large majority of missing persons reports that are made, the people who are gone missing in those cases do come back. Now, it may not be that day, but it may be 2 days later, a week later, they show back up. The problem, I cannot tell you how important it is to understand this, is that the difference at this point, as far as trying to understand disappearances, there's no way to tell the difference between that person who disappears and is going to come back 3 days later and the person who disappears and doesn't come back at all. All right? For example, Megan Lancaster from this last Friday. We know what she was into. Okay? We know the kind of lifestyle she has. She has not come back yet. She may be out there alive somewhere, but her family doesn't know where she is. Her disappearing, there are probably 100 disappearances that have occurred this year, even more than that, of young women exactly like Megan under similar circumstances that came back in 2 days. Even though there was a missing persons report filed on them, they came back in a few days. Megan hasn't come back yet. You don't know how difficult that is for police to try to figure that out. Because what they are told every time that they get a missing persons report, the family says, "We are so worried about her. She was into this, she was into that. We don't think she was coming back." But then those women, young women, come back. But Megan doesn't. And as I've continued to say, and once again, this is somebody saying I try to play it right down the center and try to be objective. This is being objective. The fact is if the police were to fingerprint and go over every vehicle and get out the dogs and the helicopters and search parties and everything for every missing person report that was filed, every department in the United States would be bankrupt. And you'd have all the cops working on missing persons cases and nothing else. All right? That is just it's a question of economics. It just is. And what I propose is that there has to be a better way to figure out the difference between the people who are going to leave, who have left and are going to come back in a few days, and the people who leave and don't come back at all. My belief is that if you were to put together all the missing person statistics of all the different demographics of people who come together or who have gone missing and put those all together, you would be able to probably figure out an algorithm or something like that, where there could be a series of questions that the police officer could ask the family to put missing people into different categories. This person is probably going to come back right away. This person probably ran off for these reasons. This person is probably doing this. And then these are the people who might be in big time trouble. I think that if you were to do some sort of study regarding all of that and crunching all of those numbers and facts and stats, we could get closer to figuring out the difference between the person who leaves and comes back right away and the person who leaves and doesn't come back at all. We'll never perfect it. But if we could just improve the percentages by 20%, that would be considerable. But it is too high expectations to think that every missing person, if their car is left somewhere, that the police are going to fingerprint it and everything else. Because if they did that, because there are so many missing persons cases, that is all the police would be doing every day. I don't know how to put it any other way. And so the key, the goal, but I don't believe anybody's trying to do this right now. So the goal should be, how do we determine the difference between those people who are going to come back and the ones who don't? Okay, I don't think anybody's trying to figure that out now. I think it would be worthy to do that. I think that would be worth somebody's time. Um, but to my knowledge, nobody's ever done that. Nobody's doing that because it would take some real crunching of all the different demographics: age, race, sex, if they're into drugs or they're not into drugs. Do they have addictions? Do they not have addictions? Do they have any mental issues? Do they not have many mental issues? And all put that into some computer program. And what can we find out from all of that? That's the only way I think we can make a real dent in getting closer to understanding disappearances better. So those people who are truly in danger, if they go missing, those ones, you know it right away, and you're almost sure of it. In contrast to the ones, those people who maybe just go off for a week to Vegas for a weekend and don't tell anybody. Um, Let me see if Derek, what is Patreon? Patreon. It's a Cherie. I think got you there. Cherie's gonna explain that to you, Derek. Thank you for doing that, Cherie. Um, I Cherie definitely does work with Ed. That is true. She's not just a fan. She was a fan for a while, but she is now one of my closest confidants when it comes to the program. Her and Emily are my two right hand women. Emily mostly for contacting new people, families, and Shuri for what we might call business type stuff, like, of course, what she's doing tonight, um, patrolling the YouTube chat. And we talk about Patreon a lot. We talk about opportunities and things outside of the podcast a lot. That's what Cherie and I do. Whereas with Emily, she and I mostly, almost only, talk about future guests, how to contact them, what do we think about these people, this case, not think about these people, but how do we get in contact with them. Emily will talk to some of them, like a very early conversation. She'll tell me what the conversation was about so I can catch myself up to speed before I have my first conversation with a possible guest. That's what Emily and I do exclusively, and then Cherie is in a different department. Let's see here. Miranda says, I ran away as a teenager, came back about 5 hours later to find 3 cop cars in my parents' driveway, so I can definitely understand their thinking. Right. Right. Yes, Derek, she is the patrol officer of this live stream. She is. And yes, that's what she does. And that's why she's in blue, and that's why she has the wrench by her name, and she has the control over the proceedings. Gene says, my boyfriend and I are new to Unfound. We don't belong to Facebook and don't want to join. Is there some way we can listen to the podcast that week without joining Facebook? You just become a member at Podomatic or iTunes or anything like that. Because the podcast really isn't posted, it's not hosted by Facebook or YouTube. The podcast is hosted by Podomatic, and then from there, it goes to all sorts of different places. Gene, Cherie, why don't you, being that Gene isn't on Facebook, why don't you maybe send her a link to Podomatic or something like that, to maybe make it easier. I understand people don't want to be on Facebook. I have no problem with that. So, Sheree, maybe we can make that happen for Gene. Maybe make it a little easier to understand maybe some of the things that and how to reach the podcast and all of that. That's just a suggestion, Sheree. Maybe you want to look into that with Gene. So let's go to this Friday's episode, and it's the disappearance of Kelly Sims, and it happened in Kelso, Washington, on October 16th, very early morning of October 16th, 1990. So we're talking about a case that's going to be 29 years old. The guest for this episode is Kelly's best friend. They knew each other since kindergarten. Her name is Brenda Rismoen, Rismoen. And the title for this episode is Conjecture, Coincidences, and Crimes. Because all three of those play a significant role in this disappearance. And it's one of the reasons that once you hear the episode, once you hear the interview with her best friend, there are a multitude of different possibilities. And they fall into those categories: conjecture, coincidences, and crimes. Just to give you some examples, conjecture. Kelly was allegedly with a guy whose name was Casey. He claims that he dropped her off 2 blocks from where she wanted to go because it wasn't on his way. He needed to go across this bridge, and he let her off there. Of course, we can theorize. Once again, a different word is is it conjecture? Maybe questioning, did that actually happen to take place? So under the realm of coincidences, well, it just happened to be that where Kelly wanted to go to, where she was going to walk to, coincidentally, her ex-husband, who was still bitter about their divorce, was at that bar that night that she would have been going there. And she never made it to this bar. Well, coincidentally, her ex-husband was at that bar. And then with crimes, that there were a couple murders that happened not long after Kelly's disappearance. And in one of the cases, the woman who was murdered went to the same high school, was in the same class, I believe, as Kelly and Brenda. And that guy was caught. So could he have something to do with Kelly's disappearance? So once again, the title of this episode is Conjecture, Coincidences, and Crimes. It's the disappearance of Kelly Sims. And just to set it up for you, she was out with her boyfriend Lester. They had 2 children together. They were at a dart tournament. Witnesses say they got into an argument and left. Well, they went their separate ways seemingly, because then later Kelly was seen at another bar, restaurant, and she happened to run into a couple people that she knew. She left with them. And one guy happened to be driving a tow truck because he was towing a young woman's car. So it was Kelly, this guy, another guy, and this girl. And one by one, this tow truck driver dropped off the car and the owner of the car, then dropped off this guy seemingly, and it was left with KC, his name's KC, and Kelly in this tow truck. And he said, sure, I'll drop you off near where you want to go. And he dropped her off what he claims 2 blocks from this bar called the Rendezvous Bar, and Kelly was going to walk the rest of the way. She never made it to the bar. Never seen again. Of course, this is the time before social media and cell phones and everything else. So, and there's some things that happened afterwards that could point you all in a few different directions. But those are the basic facts, and we kind of break those down, of course, a lot more with Brenda. And Brenda has been involved since the beginning. She knows all of these people. She talked to Kelly 4 days before she disappeared. She knew the ex-husband. She knows Lester. She knows Casey, the truck driver. And so she has been living with us. She still lives in that same town. So she's been really working hard over the last 29 years to try to figure out what happened to her best friend, Kelly. And that once again happened October 16th, 1990 in Kelso, Kelso, in the state of Washington, and I think this is the first disappearance we've covered in the state of Washington. I think I should have checked that before I said it, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. Um, okay, thank you, Cherie. Thank you for helping Gene out. Um, she disappeared from Kelso, Washington, the state of Washington, not Washington D.C. Kelso, Kelso, and that is a disappearance that is on Charlie Project, and it's in the NamUs database as well. So we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, and my voice is feeling it a little bit. So I'm going to wrap this up. Saw some dolphins today. I put the video up on Facebook if you want to see that. Over 5,000 members in the group. I can't thank all of you enough, and I appreciate Carrie for taking on the new duties of administering the group and making sure everybody stays in line. Books are going out. Volume 5 books are going out to the guests from those cases that are in Volume 5 tomorrow. And the high level Patreon supporters will be getting theirs sent in the mail tomorrow. We talked about Ben, I guess it was Ben Guerra, who is a Hemphill County deputy who is resigning. We talked about the Megan Lancaster poll, and I talked about talking to a investigator regarding one of the disappearance that Unfound is covered, and he wanted some information from me, and I was more than happy to give it to him. I answered questions from Jill about if I believe any serial killers are involved in any of Unfound's cases. I took a question from Kim about an interview. What would I do? Would I ever interview somebody who I thought was lying? And then finally, I took a question from Julia about talking to police officers about why disappearances aren't handled differently. And then we talked about previewing Friday's disappearance, the disappearance of Kelly Sims from Kelso, Washington, October 16th, 1990. An episode I am calling Conjecture, Coincidences, and Crimes. The guest is her best friend, Brenda Rismone. So I'm going to go. It's 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Friday, Cherie. That would be 1 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays on Podomatic, Cherie. Thank you all. Thanks for all the questions. And I will see all of you, for some of you, for the Think Tank on Sunday night. And you'll hear me on Friday as I interview Brenda. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking some time. This will be the background I think you will see from now on, but I'm getting something that will be going in the background somewhere or something. We'll work something out. Somebody's sending me something that I'm really excited about, and you'll see it after I get it. Good night, everyone.